What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, as the title say, we're going to be installing a 3.8 Whipple Gen 6, brand new Gen 6 on this beautiful TrackHawk here. So let's go ahead and jump right into the video. So we got the Hawk. This unit had a Gen 5 Whipple on there before. We took that off, sent that to Whipple because we had some issues with that. And the owner upgraded to a Gen 6. Gen 6 is brand new, just released, 3.8. So we're going to go ahead and get that installed here. We also have a nitrous plate from Nitrous Outlet that we're going to go ahead and install also under the Whipple Supercharger. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we got. So we got the Whipple here, massive unit. We got a bunch of parts that came with it, pulley, throttle body. We got some FIC injectors, a bunch of belts. We got all the hardware and stuff that came with the kit. One thing we did have to get is some extra bolts. These are the bolts that hold the Whipple to the head. But because we're using the plate, we needed some longer bolts. Those weren't supplied with the kit, so we had to get some ARP ones. So if anybody's interested, that's the part number there. You're gonna need a total of 10 bolts. These are 50 millimeter. I believe these ones are 40 millimeter factory. Let me see. Should say it right here. 10. These are 30 millimeter. So these are 30, these are 50. So we got that. We got the Nitrous Outlet plate kit. Super nice. That sits under the Whipple. We got the jets here. And we got the Whipple instruction. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into the installation. First thing I'm gonna do is assemble. Well, I already assembled it. This is a dry fit. So I'm going to pull it apart, install the correct jets. Also going to use some red Loctite on all the fittings because this sits under the Whipple. The last thing you want is for one of these to come loose and you have to take the supercharger off to deal with that. So red Loctite should do the trick. So I'm going to head and pull this apart and install the correct jets with the red Loctite. And we're going to go ahead and get this on the head first with the gasket. Gonna be using, got a bunch of gaskets here because you Mopar guys are weird with your gaskets, man. So we got a bunch of gaskets here. I'm gonna be using the this is the Whipple supplied gasket. Gonna be using this one between the head and the plate. So I'm gonna put the plate on first, so that way when I put the Whipple, because I have to put the plate first because these lines and stuff, and then put the Whipple after. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this and then jump right back in with you guys. So I have the Nitrous Outlet plate assembled and bolted down to the head. I applied a little bit of silicone underneath. So once I lift the bolts up, this is going to stay in place and I could place the supercharger on top without having it shifting around. That helps with the alignment of the gasket and also the alignment of the plate. So I have that bolted down. I have the lines pre-ran, and that's basically how it looks. So once I'm ready, I'm going to remove the bolts and then I'll put the supercharger on top and bolt that down. But before we do that, I got a couple more stuff I have to do to the supercharger. So let's go ahead and look at that. So I got the supercharger here and I'm just running through the instructions. Basically, instruction from instruction 1 to number 4 is basically swapping over the various map sensors and the coolant temp sensor. Pretty simple. So here we got a map sensor here. We have an adapter because we need a boost port. So we had an adapter here. If not, this would have bolted straight to the supercharger. So one map there. We have one right here and one more right there. And then we have the coolant temp sensor right there. So that's basically swapping over the different stuff. In the instructions, it's a little different because This instruction, I believe, is for a Gen 5. So you can see here they show 2-port in the back, but on the Supercharger itself it only has 1. So I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. They added that one that was here, they added that to the front because now the front has 2 instead of 1. So basically 1 through 4 is just swapping over the map sensors, coolant temp sensor. These 5 and 6 are some ORB fittings. Not sure if I'm going to use those yet, so those would go here, and same thing on the other side. I'm gonna leave those out for now because I might not use those. I might block them off. They're easily accessible once the Supercharger is on the car, so I'll wait to either add those or I'll have to add some block offs for those. This one, again, instruction is for a Gen 5. This fitting is not there on this Supercharger. So as you can see, that's the throttle body there. That's the opening for the lid. That would be right here. And we don't have that port there. So again, this is a Gen 6. It's pretty new. This is the Gen 5 instruction, so there are very little differences there. So the next step where we're at is going to be adding the oil to the Supercharger. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. So we got the supplied oil from Whipple fit in, and as you can see what it says right there, Supercharger is shipped without oil. Fill per instructions. Alright, so per the instructions, we're gonna fill to the little glass here about halfway, and then spin and rotate the compressor to get the oil into the bearings. So we remove the plug. That's an 8mm Allen. Remove the plug, and we're gonna go ahead and fill with oil. Alright, so we got it here. We got cut off at an angle. We're just gonna go ahead and spray the oil into the Supercharger. You want to make sure you also have this on a flat surface, so that way you could get the best reading for the amount of oil you're putting in there. You're watching in this sight glass here. You want to have the fluid about halfway or in the middle of this glass. Okay, so there's something I want to go over. As you guys saw, I just put 4 ounces into the Supercharger. It's nowhere close to the sight glass to being halfway. The instruction calls for 4 ounces, but the instruction is wrong. So I checked, double checked with Whipple, double checked with some other people, and it seems like it takes about 5.8 ounces. So we had to get another bottle of oil, and we're gonna go ahead and continue putting that in. So again, it's not 4 ounces. You're gonna fill it until you see it halfway in the sight glass. And the Supercharger is level, because I had to double check for myself, you know, because I was second guessing myself. But yeah, so don't really follow the instruction. Fill it until you see it halfway in the sight glass. That's a more visible way of knowing how much oil you have to put in there. Again, you don't want to overfill it, but you also, most importantly, do not want to underfill it, because then the bearings are not going to get lubed properly and you're going to have premature failure. So let's go ahead and add the rest of oil and get that level up correctly. So just want to show you guys close. You can see now we have fluid coming up in the sight glass. We didn't have nothing before. So right there, right now, we are about halfway. I'm gonna go ahead and spin the rotor, get everything moving a little bit, and then check the level again. So we are perfect. Right there, you can see the level, good to go. And we used What do we use? Just right about, I'll say right about half of the other bottle. So yeah. So half would be, if it's right about half, that's what, 4 ounces plus half of this would be 2 ounces, so 6. And they call for 5.8. So we're pretty on the money there. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put back the bung. Just make sure you drop a little bit of lube on the O-ring, so that way it doesn't go in dry and rip the O-ring. So let's go ahead and drop that back in, and then move on to the other steps. Alright, so we got the oil in, step 8. Next step is going to be step 9, which is going to be putting the Whipple on the motor. Instruction basically says use the stock gasket or the Whipple gasket. Don't use the paper gasket. That's pretty self-explanatory there. Not a big deal. So we're using the Whipple gasket on both the Supercharger and the nitrous plate. We got an extra set of Whipple gasket. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this onto the motor. I got the bolts here. These are titanium 50mm bolts that we had to get because of the plate. We had to get extended ones. These are the ones from Whipple. I believe they're 35mm. Got a little bit of blue Loctite on the bolts already. We got the gaskets already there. I put some silicone on the gasket. I bolted them down so everything stays in place. So you should be able to just put the Supercharger on without having the gaskets or anything moving like that. So yeah, let's go ahead and get that done, and then I'll jump right back in. Ready? Come back. Don't go there. Down. Thank you. Just gotta put it in and have it seated properly. Alright, so we got the Whipple on. Step 9, boom. Step 10 would have been to add the front bolt to support the front of the Whipple. Because we have the nitrous plate, this one sits a little bit above the hole so it doesn't line up. Once we're done, we're gonna fabricate a plate to bolt it here so it does support. So that step I'm gonna skip for now. Not gonna mark that one, just like these other ones that I skipped earlier. Gonna skip that one. And then the next step is gonna be to torque all 10 bolts for the Whipple. I already ran them down by hand. See there, all 10. And this is the torquing sequence provided by Whipple. What I did was I just marked it here on the Supercharger lid, so that way I don't have to keep going back to the book. Use a Sharpie and just mark it there. Same thing Whipple said. And the sequence they want you to do it is 4 pounds, 11 pounds, and then finish with 16 pounds. So we're gonna go ahead and get that started. Alright, so we got the first sequence completed, 4 pounds. After each sequence, you just want to test the rotor, make sure it spins freely, nothing is binding. If something is binding, that's an indication that it's not being torqued down evenly and the case is twisted. So we're good to go. We're going to move to the next step, and that's 11 foot-pounds. So we got it all torqued down to 16 pounds. All 10 bolts. and everything spins freely, no binding, so we're good to go on that. When torquing, guys, you just want to make sure you're giving it a smooth motion, no twisting, jerking, just a smooth motion, and follow the torque sequence. I mean, it's there for a reason. So we're good to go on 11. Step 12 would have been to torque the main support bolt here, which again we are not going to do right now because we need to make a bracket for that. So 13 is going to be fuel rail. The instructions is for the stock fuel rail. We're not using, we have aftermarket rails because we have a 4 fuel system in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the injectors, place those in, and place the rails in place. So I got the injectors. These are some FIC 2150 it looks like. Before I put the injectors, guys, you should know this, lube the O-rings. Don't want to go in dry. You already know what happened when we go in dry. Don't want to go in dry. So lube the O-rings. I'm going to lube them and then go ahead and place all injectors in place. So let me go ahead and do that. I don't need to record that. Let me go ahead and do that, then I'll jump back in. Alright, so we got the fuel rails in, FIC injectors in, plug everything up, and I lay the harness down. Same thing on this side, the rail is in, harness plugged in. On this side, we got the regulator there, we have a fuel rail, fuel line here. This one goes to that side, but the way they had it running under the blower. I don't like that. So I'm gonna remake that line and run it along with these lines. Just run it behind the blower and coming right here. So I have to do that. I could do that later on. I don't have to do that now. So next couple of steps is basically putting the brackets and stuff, which this car already had a Whipple on there, had the Gen5 3.8. So it has all the brackets, it has all of that. So all of that step I'm gonna be skipping. So basically the next thing I'm gonna do now is take the lid off. I just rested on there to cover everything. Take the lid off, put the O-ring that Whipple sends. You see here the O-ring seal. Bolt the lid on, and then just skip through the instructions and go from there. I already started plugging up the map sensors, all of that there. This is for the coolant temp sensor in the blower, or the air temp sensor. So that one I didn't plug in because I have to take the lid off. So I'm gonna do that and pretty much go from there. So again, I'm gonna take the lid off, put the O-ring seal, and then bolt the lid on. So I got the lid O-rings. It also comes with this O-ring that's for the throttle body. It goes right here inside that indentation right there. So don't forget to put that one or you're gonna have boost leaks. And then the main one for right here. So we got that one in and we got the O-ring in. Don't be like me, guys, and forget to put the gasket on. I got the O-ring for the cooler. I also got the O-ring for the throttle body, but I initially forgot to put the gasket on, so I had to take the lid back off. So remember to put the gasket. Don't be like me. So I'm gonna throw this on and then throw the lid back on. Okay, so I got the lid on with the O-ring here for the throttle body, with the gasket, and with the O-ring. So the lid is on. Torque specs are in the book. Let's pull that up. Torque specs here or in the book. Right here is, it also has a tightening sequence, which is also good to follow. Not as important as the first one with the base, but still important for proper sealing. The torque specs are in inch-pound. I converted them to foot-pound because I don't have an inch-pound torque wrench. So it's 6 1/4, 7 1/2, and about let's say 9 1/4 there for that. Foot-pounds. If you have an inch-pound, it's an inch-pound. For the 2 bolts in the rear, which are these ones here, because we have the nitrous plate and also because of how big the Whipple is, it's really hard to get back there to put the bolts, tighten the bolts. So what I did, and I spoke to the owner of the car before I did this, I drilled 2 holes right there. This is under the cowl for the windshield wiper, so you won't see that because it has a cover here. So I drilled 2 holes, about 10 11 millimeter size holes, so I could fit the bolt and also an Allen wrench so I could tighten in the back. The back ones and also these ones, unless you have a special long tool, let's see, unless you have a special long tool that fits in there, you won't be able to torque these. I hand tighten them. Based on what I tighten here, I had a feel for it. Don't over tighten them because you will break the bolts. The bolts are not super large bolts. So yeah, I just hand tighten these, pretty much a feel of how I torque those. That's one. That's let's see, 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and the 2 in the back. All the other ones, as you saw, I torqued those to specs, and then those I just torque with the not torque but tighten with the Allen wrench. So we got the lid on. I'm gonna go ahead and put the fittings for the cooler. We're not using the standard Whipple cooler, which are these, which are the push-on hose type. On this car, we have a chiller, and we had converted it to AN. So I have the fittings similar to these. Let me see. These. I have the fittings here. Gonna go ahead and swap the O-rings, even though these O-rings were new because I had swapped them before. Gonna go ahead and put this here and put those. So let's get it. All right, so I got the fittings in and also connected the lines for the chiller. I did a lot of stuff off camera. So I got the nitrous solenoids mounted. We got each side has its own solenoid. So we got a fuel solenoid here and we have a nitrous solenoid here. We're gonna be running on those solenoids. So that's how we're looking. The lines that we previously ran to the plate, we connected those lines to the solenoid. That's the purge and that's the nitrous fuel. So we have all of that mounted. I also did some wiring, added some connectors here. So in case you need to remove the solenoid, it's a lot easier than having to cut anything. Also added one back here. This wire, I think I'm gonna have to extend. I don't like how it sits here on the supercharger. I want it to tuck under here. So once I get everything running and I start it, then I'll do this last. I'll just cut this and extend this a little bit more. Kind of like this side. See how this side is tucked in here? That's how I want it to look. Also went ahead and throw on the belt. We're running a K100 615 HD. That's the one that we need for the plate, because that one is longer as it needs to be. Also connected the catch can lines. I'm gonna go ahead and put some fluids in, and then we should be able to crank this baby up. We also have a custom 3D printed cold air intake here that he got made with this vent here. Pretty cool deal. This we're waiting on a filter to come for this because it's pretty big. He also has an adapter to where he can run it without a filter, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so again, I'm gonna go ahead and put some fluids in there, check the oil. I did an oil change on this already, so just verify the oil level. and then we can go ahead and get the first startup, and you guys will see that. So let me go ahead and put some coolant in there, and I'll be right back. All right, so I got ignition on, fuel pump primed, and I'm just checking the fittings for leaks before I start, or before I try to start. If there's a leak, I'll see it right away, and then I can address it before we try to start. So far, looking good. Let's go ahead and try to fire this baby up. Sounds good. The little smoke you see is just stuff burning off. I was touching everything. There's coolant was leaking everywhere. So that's just stuff burning off. I don't see any leaks right now. Obviously gonna keep an eye on everything. So yeah, she fired up. First try. So guys, I'm gonna go ahead and close this video out here. It's been a pretty long video, but as you see, the Whipple is on. We're running good. We got the filter on, got everything going good. So the next video of this you should see is doing some testing, doing some hits. If you guys have any questions about the install, any questions about anything in the video, feel free to drop it in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.